You know, the next subject I'd like to cover with you is this foreclosure system that we've got here in Missouri. All a lender has to do is send you a registered letter and give you 4 weeks notice that he is going to sell your home on the courthouse steps. How much real ownership do you have in your home if that's all they have to do? You're never going to have a day in court, and you're never going to have an opportunity to argue that the payments weren't posted properly to your account, or that the lender didn't treat you fairly. I don't know whether you know this or not, but there are a number of states that won't let a mortgage company do that. They give you your day in court. That's called judicial foreclosure, where you actually get a lawsuit opportunity to set forth your position. Well, you don't do that here in Missouri. No, they send you the registered letter, and then they have a right to throw you out after the 4-week period. What kind of a law is that they could do that to you? You know, you hear Obama and that gal that runs the FDIC and all of them telling you to call your lender and work something out. Nobody answers the phone. And if they do, it's more often than not than some poor person in India being paid minimum wage to give you double talk while the time runs on your foreclosure. Well, bankruptcy won't let them do that. We stop the foreclosure. Their all payments due provision, where you have to pay everything, that's all canceled out. And you get back to your regular payment plan, and you make up the difference that you owe in equal payments over 3 or 5 years. It gives you a chance. But don't be feeling bad about bankruptcy. Bankruptcy is your salvation. With all the crooked things that they've done, all these big moneyed people, during Democrat and Republican administrations, the one thing they haven't done is they haven't destroyed the Constitution. And in the U.S. Constitution, bankruptcy is a constitutional right. It's in the Constitution itself. That's why you have that right. Hell, if it was a law, the Bush people and the crooked Democrats would have already taken it away from you. So bankruptcy, that's an American right. Rid yourself of bankruptcy myths. I don't know whether you know this, and if you watch the videos, you'll learn the underlying reasons. But if you are uninformed enough about the economic system to be worrying about your FICO score will improve if you file bankruptcy. Watch the videos and you'll learn why. The moral issue, I've hit that a little bit, that there is no moral issue. You know, you're supposed to pay your bills and never file bankruptcy. But my God, when General Motors and Chrysler filed bankruptcy, that was their fresh start. And you had the President of the United States coming out telling you how wonderful it was. Well, are you less deserving than General Motors? Are you less deserving than Chrysler? You sure as hell aren't. Don't fall for all this double talk. None of it makes sense. It's all crazy business. You know, up above there, when I told you about the federal regulators, I'm a former bank examiner. I'm a former liquidator for the FDIC. I closed banks and would collect the loans from the government. I can tell you firsthand that the Federal Reserve and all of these organizations don't care about you. They care about making the banks profitable. And that's why nobody's done anything to protect you. Years ago, I went into a bank and I learned as an examiner that the bank was cheating people on the interest rates. And I went back to the Federal Reserve and I had a report that I'd written up. And my boss told me, no, you're not going to run that report through. We'll tell the bank to correct the problem, but we are more interested in bank safety and soundness. Well, you know, today everybody's looking at your financial posture. Well, compare it to the bank's financial posture. Have they been required to mark their financial statements up to make them accurate? Have they charged off all the mortgages that are never going to be collected? No, of course not. It's a double standard, folks. One standard for you, one standard for them. And as long as we tolerate it as a system, as long as we're dumb enough to argue among each other as to who's a Democrat or who's a Republican, then they'll continue to prevail. Because this isn't anything to do with Democrat or Republican. It's a bunch of people behind the scenes controlling everything. And your decision to file bankruptcy is integral to their success, continued success. If you file bankruptcy and cancel out what they think they're going to collect from you, then you're helping the American system as far as I'm concerned. You're telling them the American people aren't going to play that game. Let me conclude with one thing that I wanted to share with you. And I hope you don't, no one would want to file bankruptcy. But if you're up against the wall and you're beset with bills you can't pay, don't be going through a guilt trip over filing bankruptcy. 98% of the cause of your problems has nothing to do with you. Now, you and I, hopefully we'll become friends as attorney-client, and I hope I share that with you personally. You're not accountable for that, most of it. Have you made mistakes? Of course you have. But they're not outcome determinative mistakes. If you could get a loan today, if the banks would loan you money and let you have an opportunity to repay it, you'd probably do just fine. They bailed out the banks with an emergency loan. How come they won't give you one? Because you're not one of the big boys. You're not one of the favored few. So I hope you understand all this, guys. I'm an accountant. I'm a former federal examiner. I'm a former federal liquidator. I've been an attorney for banks and savings and loans. I know this firsthand. And I know what a sucker punch the American people are being given. Let me conclude this section with something that I want you to think about. And I hope you watch this video more than once. I hope you think about it. This is a guy named Frédéric Bastiat from France, a political economist. And in his time, the big boys were stealing and doing a bunch of crooked things like they are today. The bank bailout and the investment bailout, the unemployment that we've got, the distribution of wealth that we've got, and all the laws, with the exception of the Bankruptcy Code, in favor of the creditors. A 10-day notice for an Associate Circuit Court lawsuit here in Missouri. Where's the American Bankers Association? Where's the Missouri Bar Association just literally screaming and saying, hey, 10 days isn't enough? No, they're not doing anything like that. They're going along with them because they're part of it. The Bankruptcy Code isn't that way. You and I go into federal bankruptcy court, you're going to go to one meeting with me. You're not going to be in a courtroom. You're going to have a hearing with me. And the rest of it, you and I do. So it's not going to be a traumatic experience for you. But let me read this one little quote from this Frederick fella. When plunder becomes a way of life for a group of men living together in society, the bank, savings and loans, Federal Reserve, all these big companies, they create for themselves in the course of time a legal system that authorizes it. Well, that's exactly what you've got. The 10-day limit on lawsuits, the credit card interest rates, the Supreme Court saying that states can't regulate interest rates. That's what it is, a legal system that authorizes it. And here's the big one, kids, and a moral code that glorifies it. Private enterprise. Earn what you want. Do you think that those people at the top of our economic ladder earned any of that? Well, they didn't. They stole it, and they stole it from you and I. They're just a bunch of thieves. So I hope that when you file bankruptcy, in the back of your mind, you say, okay, what's important? Well, my family, your family's important. That's where you owe your loyalty and your decision-making. Your FICO score will be fine. You're going to be able to borrow again. I hope you go through the video series on bankruptcy here and you'll learn all that. But you need to be concerned about any of that. Learn the facts, and I hope that you appreciate listening to an attorney that's candid enough to tell you the truth. God knows you're not going to hear this information from any other lawyer. We remain quiet about all this stuff, and as long as we do, the crooks that are in control will continue to be able to do what they're doing to us. So I hope that you've profited from this. Watch this segment again on reasons for bankruptcy. Do not feel guilty about filing bankruptcy. Again, in 99% of the cases that I have, the culpability is the betrayal of the American people by their own government. Nobody's telling you that. You don't see it on TV. You don't hear it on the radio. But it's the truth. That's why you've got this distribution of wealth problem. And nobody wants to talk about it. Come on in and see me.